Hello and welcome to episode number 57 of Global Daily Insights with Sridhar Chityalaji. Today is the 21st of December. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning to everybody, and good evening, early good evening in India on this Christmas week.
Sir, we are going to take a look at the stimulus, the economy, and the markets today, and also a little bit about COVID. So let's start with what is happening on the stimulus package. There was an agreement in principle, but we don't know the details yet. But there is some convergence going on in Washington, D.C., isn't it?
It is, it is. There clearly is an agreement that will be put to vote today. They were able to get 1 day extension from the president, so the government will not run out of money. So 1 day extension expires Monday midnight, which is today's midnight here. And today they expect to pass the budget. Now, the principal point of contention appears to be this $439 billion or $429 billion unused money that was given by the Treasury to Fed was called back. That's the back-end collateral to cover a lot of potential loans to corporates and small. So that was called back because it was unused. So raising much of contention that when the new government comes in, there won't be money available and they have to come back to the House. They wanted the money to be left behind. And Mnuchin followed the principles of the government, which is effectively to say there's nothing called accrual and carryover. So the things expire, but we're going to keep the money in the Treasury once the new government takes over. That includes the House, the Senate, the President. Then you can get an expeditious approval and take the money once the programs are determined. That seems to be the sticking point. That was the sticking point. So it went on and on and on and delaying the budget. So they seem to have resolved. Now, this is my inference that they also seem to have, as part of this, agreed to some components of the budget for 2021 going up to September 30th. This is the first snippets of information going up to not full year, but going up to September 2021. So stimulus plus some spending budget. So the government has the money to fund till September 30th. So that seems to have broken the ice. And so because then there is a broad consensus on where the use of capital will be deployed. The programs no one doubts. The programs that we have been discussing, at a high level every kind of almost every other day. The programs will be obviously, it's not a $1,200 direct check, but it's a $600 check to families. I think it's per dependent, so they have expanded per dependent, not only those who are young. They have extended that to I think another $300 per dependent. They've extended the unemployment insurance, which is the same, again, $300 over and above what the states offer. They've also agreed on the testing program, given the corona situation, and also all the hospitals and the frontline workers, etc., which require money in terms of with the rising kind of cases in United States. And obviously for money to be spent for the vaccines. The one new addition, which I think is excellent, is the $15 billion. I know it's a small number, but $15 billion to the airline programs. The airline program is basically, they want to get all these staff back. So it's a payroll protection to bring people back and get the confidence when the economy really does take off. Airline is the hub and spoke of travel in the United States, right? As we all know, right? So they don't want to have, hiccups and inconveniences. So I think so. The program is so that's the scope. Unfortunately, we'll be able to share more details tomorrow, but this is the high-level headlines on the stimulus.
Sir, with your permission, I'm putting up the first slide, which is to talk about the treasury rates and a look at the treasury rates as they've varied from 2016 onwards. And what is your projection on how the interest rates are going to be? Because yesterday I think I saw that 30-year fixed is now 2.5%. I have never, ever in my life seen 30-year fixed come down to 2.5%. So what do you make of these treasury rate trends, sir?
Sree Iyerji, you must buy two more houses as an investment grade property at 2.5%, sir. So, just on the spread, you can make a little bit of money on that. Well, the long-term interest rates, if you can, if people are looking at the chart, you can see that Jerome Powell has effectively stated 2021 is going to be kept maintained at 0%. 0% here means around the base rate is around 0.25%, and that extends into 2022, right? So 2022 also we could see the 0.25% extension going. The reasons are that there are no macro indicators that show inflation above their notional target of 2%. If we look at the inflation number when we come up to the next chart, you will see that 2020 inflation is around 1.2%, and the 2021 inflation is around 1.8% or 1.9%. This is the non-core. This is the core inflation, not the non-core. Right? So this is the core inflation is around those two numbers. So which effectively implies even on the interest rates, they are managing the interest rates at a manageable level. The whole goal is to get the employment up, right? So we had a temporary hiccup, and the unemployment is today is around 6.7% or 7%. We were at 6.7%, but when we had these numbers go from 710,000 to about 853,000, the numbers, that's when it kind of slightly ticked up. So the other number that they look at, the headline unemployment rate, they expect the unemployment rate to come down to 5%. That is the whole nature of the stimulus program. So how do you contain stimulus program? So government injects cash into the small business, which is roughly 50% of the GDP and the employment. So by giving those particular infusing capital into the small businesses, they are, and also the airline industry, which also employs decent number of people, the healthcare industry, which also employs a decent number of people. So you're beginning to see that there is an infusion of capital to fund augmenting the industry. So naturally, that allows the interest rate benefits to flow through into the system. Yes, indeed. 3.67% was the average mortgage rate last year. Okay, so when you bring it to a 2.5 to 2.6%, which is the variance, you are talking about 1.1% or 1.17% give back to the consumers. So the consumer stuff is namely that they are able to rebalance their books besides the stimulus program. And also the other variable that we also always project is the crude. The crude is around still less in the $40 to $45, so which is a big item of expenditure for an average consumer. So you have the fuel, you have the food, you have a cash infusion, you have a reduction in the rate. You will also see that there is the rents have been stabilizing, and the rental market has also seen decline in the demand. Yeah.
San Jose just reported that there is a decline of 7.7% in the rentals. Yesterday it gave the number. So they are steadily going downwards. We are having nuclear families now becoming more and more the norm. Children are coming back to stay with their parents. And so this is a trend that is expected to continue on. So would you like me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, please. Yes.
S&P 500 performance, sir.
Okay, so I think if I go to S&P 500 performance, I mean, I'm looking at the same slide. Well, it's quite amazing that, we started the year at 3,200. Before we started this morning, we were at 3,709, roughly around 15.9% or 16% growth in 2020. That's quite astounding in terms of that this being a pandemic year. Well, we dropped 62 points, and the futures have dropped 62 points. So we are around, I think now 3,640 or 3,650, the futures market, right? The S&P, which is the Dow is down 400. We always use S&P as a kind of a base parameter in terms. So it's quite a kind of a stellar performance. I know there's concentration here, the concentration in the tech, the concentration in retail, the concentration in semiconductor, the concentration in the content consumption industries. You saw Disney and Netflix, etc., kind of go up. But it is at least people are able to participate. They haven't seen decline in their relative savings or in the 401k. When I know people here, sometimes you see comments, but you have to look at numbers as numbers, whether there is President Trump sitting or whether Obama is sitting or Biden is sitting or whether, what's his name, Bill Clinton is sitting or Ronald Reagan is sitting. The fact is that when President Trump took over, we were around 2,200. If you take the number, let us say 3,600, that's about 1,400 point rise in 4 years, or less than 4 years, and 1 month less than 4 years. That's roughly 1,400 over 22. You're talking about like 70% kind of a growth, 60% type of growth. So when you look at that specific number, the average growth per year has been around 15 to 16%. We did have a dip when the interest rates went up to 2.25% in the 2018-19 when the markets went from 278 to 2607. And that's the 18-19 number. But since barring that discounting that year, you find that the markets have kind of, at that point of time, people were expecting a recession. And the general disposition in the past 4 years, despite one full year going down in pandemic, if you have been in the S&P, you have done very well in the last 4 years. So that's the headline message. And it's expected to do well again next year because when we look at the next year projection, the previous chart you would have seen, we're talking about 4.2% GDP growth. That's a terrific number relative to a contraction of minus 2.4% in the current year, right? So therefore, that also augurs well. The market pundits are predicting a 9% growth. They expect gyrations in the market in the first 2 quarters, as we are seeing right now as to what's happening in UK, because everything is around COVID. There's no predictability in the curve. And the good news is we have vaccines now around the world, and people have the ability to respond to it. So we may see gyrations just as today, right? Dow 400 points down, S&P 62 points down, NASDAQ 127 points down, right? So just as you see the gyrations, the first 2 quarters, they do expect some amount of gyrations. And then, but the general disposition is the markets to be very good. If you're in markets, public markets to be very good in 2021.
Okay, sir. So let's take a look at the latest entrant into the Standard & Poor Index, because it's a nice point to segue into that. The rise of Tesla has been meteoric. I think now the company cap is the combined cap of all the other automobile manufacturers, if I do my math right, in the United States, like GM, Ford, and so on. This rise has been meteoric. It is essentially a computer on wheels. That's how I see it. What are your thoughts, sir? And now that Tesla is moving to Texas, that's going to be another blow to the Californian economy, that's especially to the Bay Area. What are your thoughts on this? Is that a good move? Would they be able to get the same kind of talent in Texas? What are your thoughts, sir?
The first and foremost, I think congratulations to Tesla, congratulations to Elon Musk. Remarkable job. He wanted to turn the company profitable and show the profitability over 6 quarters. And he has achieved that goal. He has demonstrated positive growth, so he has expanded markets. His sales growth, top line sales growth, he has accomplished. I think that they see Tesla, as you rightly said, is the next generation automobile on a computer, right? It is also about EV. I mean, in 5 years from today, we may have more EVs coming out of our ears and eyes rather than what we see today. The best way, if people are looking at the S&P, the top 12 companies or top 14 companies by weightage, the cutoff is around 300 billion market cap. it's a very fascinating chart. If one you are studying, if you look at the bottom of the chart, it's Walt Disney at 313 billion market cap. If you look at the top of the chart, you got
I have
Apple.
it, sir. I have
Huh?
it up there. I have it up there. Go
You have
ahead.
it. But take a
Yeah.
look at the Apple, then it's around $2.02 trillion in terms of the market cap. It's a very striking, it's almost 7x multiple between I'm not talking about 500, we are talking about, 15 companies here. It's a 7x multiple in market cap. That's obviously reflected. So what it means is that, and again, if you had asked someone in 2010, would you have seen this specific chart? You don't see Walmart, you don't see J.C. Penney's, you don't see you don't see Target, you don't see General Motors, right? You don't see Ford, you don't see any of these companies in this specific chart. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, well, Tesla. Tesla sits there. What it simply implies is that these guys have understood the market. They have moved ahead with the needs of the market. And this people should go back to 2008, 2009 financial crisis. One of the biggest things that was impacted was the automobile industry, right? The Detroit crisis. They call it as the Detroit crisis, right? And so the story is that sadly, they're moving up, but they have not reinvented themselves to the extent what Tesla has done. Right? That is a classic example. In 8 years, the industry can change and change quite dramatically. Right? That's what Tesla is telling us, which is to say, the future. We knew the future, and that is why we have made an effort. And they're also now contemplating a merger potentially. They would be interested, not contemplating. They would be, maybe perhaps with Daimler. So that's the message that I get on the Tesla side. And Tesla is also in space. Okay, their SpaceX program is successful. So is the market also weighing in what you call as the unquantified benefit that can flow on, given that they have demonstrated on this whole EV side, from battery to distribution to production of vehicles that they can deliver?
One question, sir. SpaceX is a separate company. Does Tesla have an investment in it? Is that how it is?
I have a feeling they have some amount of either investment stake in it. I need to be corrected, but that's one of the things that has been pointed out is that their SpaceX program is successful. That to some extent, gave a boost. Whether they have a stake or whether they are supplier of some components to the SpaceX programs. There's obviously Elon Musk is the connection point. Whether company to company, whether there is anything that needs to be, I need to go back and take a look at that. Yeah.
Sir, let's move on to now. Let's move on to COVID. The latest news that is coming out of United Kingdom. How much of a concern is that for the people of the world? I know that countries are now stopping to fly to UK. Is that a temporary halt? Do you see? Because a lot of other statements also have come saying that the vaccine will not change, that it will be able to still treat the new variant also. How do you see this play out, sir?
Well, I think it's like almost, when you have a little cold, you sneeze. Now, obviously, it's caused concern. If one has to use the principle of isolation as the best method by which you deal with this, so the world has responded by dealing with it the same way. There is an abnormal, they observed it over the weekend. They saw it rapidly infecting people. They saw the cases going up. So immediately the world responded by basically disconnecting UK. In or out, there's no transport, including people are concerned whether I'm sure they will figure out a way by which these vaccine supplies, which needs to be airlifted to Britain, because the BioNTech Pfizer factories are in Europe, whether that supplies can reach UK to meet the needs of the people, from a vaccination point of view. So how do I see it? Well, they say it's a new strain. Is a new strain which is causing. They've said the same thing about India. They said it is a strain which is slightly less in intensity, which is why there's a very high recovery rates in India, and it can deal with this what you call as the herd immunity. A lot of people acquire it and then they develop the self immunity as a part of that process. So I don't think any of us can answer, at least which is to say, we have a clue or we have a framework for the solution. So I don't think so, sir. So I think that is the well, it is a concern, but there are vaccines. That's the good news relative to 6 or 7 months ago. We have enough vaccines now. We have we have vaccines from Russia, we have vaccines from India, we have vaccines from Europe, we have vaccines from United States. Moderna got just approved. So therefore, there's enough vaccine. Then we have, India is manufacturing enough vaccines. They're going to do 300 million for the Sputnik vaccine for Russia. So, I think that there is sufficient amount of capacity now available and reach that is available, so which allows world to deal with this issue, right? So I don't think that there is any panic. It's just a moment. It's a response to a weekend event.
And I think I must mention that these are passenger flights that have been stopped. The freight flights have been going on from anywhere to anywhere. This has been happening for several months now. So I'm sure that the availability of the vaccine will be available everywhere in the world, including the United Kingdom. This is just my first thoughts. If there's a change, we will let you know tomorrow or the day after, whenever we get an update. But this brings us to a close on today's edition. We'll be back tomorrow with more news on election front, US politics, and everything else that is happening around the world. Namaskar. Thanks for joining us, and please do subscribe to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.